I have a question. Say we get into the cage and through the security doors there and down the elevator we can't move and past the guards with the guns and into the vault we can't open.
Without being seen by the cameras.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, well, say we do all that. We're just supposed to walk out of there with $150 million in cash on us without getting stopped?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Welcome to Money Unplugged. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for being here. Have you been here before? If you're enjoying the show, please do me a favor. Leave a review on your podcast app. It's one of those things that helps other people find the show. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we're having some good conversations about money, me and the guests. And hopefully you're getting something out of it too, whether it's a financial tip or hearing someone share a mistake they made with money that you also made with money too. And that means you're not alone because we all make mistakes. So if you like the show, please leave a review. If you're not sure or you have suggestions, drop an email to info@moneyunpluggedpod.com. Today on the show, it's James Early. He's an investment analyst and the founder of Curia Financial. He's another one of my former colleagues I wanted to talk with for two basic reasons. One is that James is a market-beating analyst. And even though this isn't a show about stock investing, I know from years of working with him just how rigorous he is when it comes to analyzing companies, industries, and markets. James is a smart guy, and there are some really great bits of wisdom that he shares in this conversation. The second reason is another thing I know from years of working with him is that James is a surprising person to talk with. He's kind of quiet, almost soft-spoken, but as you'll hear in this conversation, he says things and shares stories that are just unexpected. Starting with the very first question I asked him. I didn't think he was going to give the answer that he ended up giving, but you'll hear for yourself in just a few seconds. So let's get to it with James Early. What is your earliest memory of money?
I think it was actually feeding my little sister nickels. I used to play with, I was a mean older brother. She's about 2.5, 2 3/4 years younger than I am. And I have no memory of this, no memory. I remember she said nickel good. And I don't know how many nickels are still lodged in her stomach, but we used to play with coins a lot. So, I mean, that's a very literal answer, but that is my first memory of money.
I bet that's her first memory of money too.
I'm hoping she's too young to remember and hoping she doesn't hear this podcast because she won't think highly of me.
Was money discussed in the home? Because this has come up numerous times. We're roughly the same age, certainly the same era, and money didn't get talked about a lot in the 1970s.
Yeah, I'm typical Gen X, Chris, also like you. My parents, neither of them came from much money. My dad is more mathy than my mom, but they both grew up relatively poor, worked for their success, worked for their money. So there was this vibe that like you had to work hard. My dad just blows me away in terms of work ethic. Like he can grind it out like there's no tomorrow. And there's no way, I can't hold a candle to him like that. But this idea that you got to work your butt off to get money, like that was sort of imbued in me from the beginning.
So does that result in a job when you're a teenager or even before you're a teenager?
Yes and no. Like I was always conniving. And let me back up because my sort of pre-memory years, and I'm saying that like before 5 or 6, when you might have spotty memories, but nothing consistent. I grew up roughly, let's say middle class, nothing special. Like I don't remember wanting for anything. My family situation changed a fair bit. It became a little more difficult, let's say. Parents got divorced, and suddenly I didn't have money. And I remember that. Those were really my first memory years. And, you know, without getting too sad sounding, I had like one pair of pants that were ripped. I had 2 shirts. I would mostly wash my hair with dishwashing soap in the sink, and I would get teased because a lot of the kids had better clothes or just, you know, had a better life. And I still remember getting my first real haircut, like an official haircut place. I'm like, oh my God, I have it made. Like I've joined the real world. Like I got a professional haircut, and it probably wasn't even that great. So there was this scarcity that I grew up with. And then suddenly my life changed again. I moved in with my dad, who was upper middle class, and suddenly I had money. I felt rich, and I kind of, some switch flipped, and I became kind of ostentatious, I think, as a compensation strategy. And so it kind of, in some ways, I think it helped me to have that contrast, and I think in some ways it hurt me.
Did it help you in the sense that when you experience, I think for a lot of people, they experience that scarcity when they're young, and it never really leaves them? Does that mindset stay with you now as you're a fully formed adult?
Last month, Chris, I was driving in Oregon, and I just had forgotten to book a hotel, and I had like 4 hours, and I was tired. I was able to pull over the car and just sleep in the car in the mountains and wake up and do like a sponge bath, and it was totally fine. I can tell you exactly how to sleep in a car. I mean, it's not the most comfortable thing on my back, but I'm not suffering. And the average person would say, "Oh my God, poor you. You could have come stay at my house." No, it's totally fine for me. I mean, I used to be fairly hungry sometimes as a kid. Like, I would think, these kids are complaining about the cafeteria food. Like, don't you realize this is food, dude? Like, wake up. Like, so I kind of had this thing where I would, not stockpile food, but I wanted to always make sure I had enough food, which, sounds kind of sad, I guess, but that's really the only baggage I have. I think for the most part, it made me a little bit ambivalent to, I can live well. I mean, I've certainly had a good life overall, and I can't complain. I've stayed at fancy hotels. I've traveled business class, and I can live that life. But if I have to pull over on the side of the road, I can do that too.
What was the first job you had when you were young?
I'm gonna give you 3 answers. The first one was, technically speaking, it was some kind of a data entry job. It was at a law firm, but it was like the lowest level job possible at the law firm, like typing in numbers into something. And I remember like trying to game it, thinking, yikes, if I work too hard the first day, then they're going to expect me to work hard all the time. So let me like pace myself right. But I frankly, I wasn't mature enough, and I kind of got ahead of myself. That, you know what, I can do better. Let me quit this and start a business cleaning cars with some friends. And I did that. And I'm not totally proud of how I got started. I figured, well, I'm going to go to some wealthy houses and distribute flyers, but I'm going to have a strategy. First thing, I'm going to put some flyers out and charge a price that's like clearly above the market price. And then 3 days later, I'm going to charge a much lower price with a different look, looking like a different business. And it worked. I mean, we got some customers saying, "Oh, good thing I didn't opt for this other guy. He was charging twice your rate." You got to be careful out there.
Oh, so it's 2 completely different flyers.
Yeah. It's just totally market manipulation, right? And again, not good. Okay, not good. But I was a kid, and so I did make.
How old were you?
I was 16. I just had my driver's license, and so I did make a fair bit more money doing the car cleaning than I did at the data entry. And it was my first experience with entrepreneurship. And eventually I didn't manage things well, and I had other priorities. So it kind of ran aground, but that was really my first experience working. And you got to work hard when you do that. It is a lot of work. And I did keep that connection between grinding it out and making money.
Do you remember how you came up with the idea to do 2 separate flyers?
I was always like I don't want to say a conniving kid, because I was fairly simplistic in many ways, but it
just seems like something that, like, I think if I had come up with that, I wouldn't have come up with it on my own. I would have seen it in a movie or on a television show.
I think I was a massive overthinker as a kid. Like, if I look back, like, oh my God, like the sky's the limit if I could have channeled the energy I put into overthinking into actually doing stuff. I had way too many mental restrictions or mental bars to clear, and sometimes it worked out for me, and maybe that was one of those times.
Where did you go to college?
I went 2 places. I started at George Washington University in DC, and I was an international affairs major. And I thought, you know what? I mean, I liked it broadly. I don't think I was 16 when I started college. I don't think I had the maturity to be there at that age.
How do you start college at the age of 16? Were you just advanced?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I
You took some tests. They're like, oh, we're going to put you in the 5th grade instead of the 3rd
exactly,
grade.
Literally. And they said 4th grade. My mom said, no, he'll be too small, so let's skip him from kindergarten to 2nd grade. But for like my initial school experience, like it was like a couple days of actual school, and then I would just go to these rooms where these people would give me these tests, like humongous mazes or math problems, and I would just do tests and tests and tests. And they said, okay, here's our recommendation. And I don't know. I mean, I think that certainly helped me in some ways, and it sounds good, but if I could go back and do it again, like I probably wouldn't have skipped. I probably would have stayed, because I think, again, IQ was higher than my EQ. And I think you need to think about both.
So you go to George Washington University, you're 16 years old, international studies, and then you transfer?
After about a year, I felt like I was reading a bunch of nonsense and then writing a bunch of nonsense in response to the nonsense I was reading. And I've always been too rebellious for my own good. And I had gotten into Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosophy at the time. And so I said, you know what? Let me actually like live this life this guy's talking about. Let me quit school. Let me become an auto mechanic and just do a lot of rock climbing on the weekends. So I did. I quit college and I just walked into a car dealership and said, hey, I don't really know anything about cars, but I want to learn. Will you hire me? And they said, all right. So I started doing that. Honestly, after like a day or two, I realized this is totally not for me. But I toughed it out for like 4 months, let's say, because I didn't want to look flaky. So I did that. I learned a lot about cars and even more about life, I would say. And at that point, I said, you know what? I got to admit, this is a mistake. Let me go back to school. At the time, I wanted to either be a U.S. Marshal, catch fugitives, or start a garden center. And so I figured I'm going to major in finance, because with finance, I can do either one of those. And if you start any kind of business, usually financial knowledge is the weak spot. So I did. And by the time I finished school, I realized, you know what? I don't want to do either one of those. I want some competitive career in finance. That was hard for me to get initially. I didn't have a good background. I had kind of a weird, experience. And I ended up volunteering at a hedge fund for a while until I demonstrated that I was worthy of being paid, basically. But that's what got me in.
Where did you end up getting your degree?
I finished at George Mason University, local school here in Virginia.
George Mason.
Yeah.
Okay. U.S. Marshal or starting a garden center, those are about as different a career as I can imagine.
I was young and foolish and really had no idea. I mean, that's code for I have no idea what I really want to do.
So you're an investment analyst. That's how I got to know you when we were working together at the Motley Fool. But you are also an entrepreneur. You've started your own businesses. And I'm curious from a mindset standpoint, do you approach both of those endeavors the same? Because I imagine you, like most investment analysts, approach investment opportunities as just that, an opportunity. Let me do some research, see if there is an opportunity in this business, in this industry, in this region of the world. Is that the same mindset you have when you are thinking about starting a business, or are they different?
There's a ton of overlap, and I think the more experienced I get in both, the more overlap I see, but that's only because of experience, in the sense that like my mental movie of starting a business is now much more compatible with the mental movie of what happens when you buy a stock. In the beginning, I didn't understand either one very well. They're both very different, very abstract. Warren Buffett says I'm a better investor because I'm a businessman, and I'm a better businessman because I'm an investor. It's easy to say as a headline, but he's got a ton of experience behind that. So I don't think I got that distinction in the beginning.
Money comes with opportunity, but it also comes with anxiety. Is the anxiety level for you the same in both endeavors, or is it higher when you're starting a business? Because I would think it would be higher if you're starting your own business. It
is higher when I'm starting a business, definitely. And I've started a couple. I'm starting one now. I would say the thing I've learned about myself, though, Chris, is that it's very hard for me to work for somebody else. And that sounds like a humble brag, but I mean it literally as a weakness. At Motley Fool, where I was at for 12 years, and that's where we met, I had the pleasure of, for most of that time, I was kind of off on the side. Like I was writing a newsletter or several newsletters, and it's not like a direct boss kind of situation. I think that worked very well for me. I had to deliver a product. I delivered that. I'm just the kind of personality that it's more stressful for me to be plugged into a big organization and manage these things because my mind just doesn't work well in that way.
How did becoming a father change the way you think about money?
Well, the headline, of course, is you're not just responsible for yourself. You got someone else. I've learned a lot from my son. I've learned how bad I am with money, actually. And let me explain that, which is ironic because, I majored in finance. I work in finance. My track record for 10 years was beating the market. Like my product outperformed the S&P, which puts me technically in like single-digit % of investment professionals. Most people can't do that. So rationally, I seem great, right? But I realize
You're great at investing. You're just not great with money.
Exactly. And here's what it is. And I'm going to give you an example from something I read, I think about ADD long ago, where some guy was saying an ADD person could, like, some ADD guy who was a professional desk organizer at the time for like CEOs and executives, but his own desk was very messy. And why is that possible? Because there's a different process when you bring something up onto your mental dashboard and focus on it versus doing something in the background. Kind of like how a computer has an antivirus program that runs in the background. It doesn't really think about it, it's just always on. And for most people, I think they've got a pretty good program for money that runs in the background. I've learned that I don't, even though optically I should, even though optically I'm super qualified. I'm in Mensa, right? Like I should, by all rights, I should be naturally good with money. And like Morgan Housel says, there's 10% of people who naturally get compounding. I think I'm among the 10% who gets it the least. So it was a very deliberate, unnatural, kind of like an unathletic guy building up a golf swing, right? Golf is like the great sport for people coming off the couch because there's really only one move and you can mechanically learn that. It's not like basketball or football that require actual athleticism. Luckily, money can work the same way. If you know how weak you are, you can compensate. And this is a long answer to your question about my son, but seeing him like with his few desires, seeing him with his ability to save money and invest money, it's like, wow, this is like actual talent. He definitely didn't get it from me.
Coming up, we've got the speed round. James will be sharing some great pearls of wisdom along with stories that have to be heard to be believed. Quick question, are you ready for summer? Memorial Day's almost here, and look, I enjoy summer vacation, going to the beach, but one of the things I love most about summer is that I find it is so much better to exercise outside. And you can get ready by going to runpacers.com and getting the workout gear you want for the summer. Pacers has got the brands you want for running, cross-training, and more. Nike, Hoka, Asics, Brooks, New Balance. They've got workout apparel for men and women, accessories, and you can get 10% off when you use the promo code MONEY at runpacers.com. Click the link in the show notes or go to runpacers.com so you can get the stuff you want, get 10% off by using the promo code MONEY, and you can get out of the gym and get outside. All right, let's get back to James Early. What is a thing that you have bought that makes you happy?
I'm going to go practical. One is all-clad pots, which sounds like very stainless steel, heavy duty. I bought these pots like 25 years ago. They look the same today. That to me is a perfect James Early purchase. You don't have to worry about it. You buy it once, it's done, it's not on your mind. Like, to me, that's like the best thing money can buy you.
I'm absolutely with you on that. And it is one of those things because, not to get completely mundane, but pots have always struck me as one of those things where it's like, yeah, these kind of should be indestructible. They should be something that lasts for a very long time. And I shouldn't be able to destroy them with my, inefficiencies in a kitchen.
And if you get stainless steel, they're not leaching those microplastics or, PFAs, whatever, the Teflon into your system at the same time.
I'm assuming you have an answer to this question, which is, have you ever made a purchase that you regret and you still think about it sometimes?
When I was around 16 or 17, a relative, like a great aunt of mine, passed away and gave me some money. I don't think I'd ever met her, or if I did, it was like when I was a little baby, and apparently she worked really hard all her life at this sweatshop and didn't have much money and just wanted to give it to some young person in the family. And I very stupidly blew that money on a used motorcycle and promptly got hit by a school bus driving that used motorcycle. I regret that. She was always a believer in education, I'm told. And I did about the dumbest thing with that money I could. And so actually, you're asking at a timely period, because it's only now I've started doing this thing in the Philippines where I'm sponsoring some kids to go to college. And that's one of the charities that I help. And for me, it's sort of a way of atonement for squandering this money, which should have been used for education, I think, long ago.
Although I'm going to encourage you to give yourself just a little bit of a break, because I feel like in those situations, and I'm speaking very broadly, I obviously didn't know the woman. It sounds like you have no memory of her as well. But a lot of times in those situations, there is this hope of, they're not expecting this money. This young person is not expecting this money from the will. I hope they do something fun with it. Now, buying the motorcycle and getting hit by a bus, that probably was not on her wish list.
Well, the bus part was not part of the plan, but yeah, I agree. It probably went a little too far. I was 16.
What's the last thing you splurged on just for yourself?
I went to Kenya this January. So the trip, and then a backpack, like a very nice backpack for the backpacking trip that I went on. I would say my biggest money weakness, I probably have many in terms of spending, is outdoor gear. I love the outdoors, Chris. Rock climbing, ice climbing, hiking, skiing, whatever, you name it. And I love gear. I wouldn't buy a Ferrari. It's just not in my nature. But I would buy a little too much climbing gear. I would buy a little bit too fancy of a backpack that I looked the part, right? But if you saw me actually do these outdoor things, like you would see, this is like Weekend Warrior Dad who goes out like twice a year.
You travel a decent amount, and I'm curious, just as a sidebar, what informs your decision to make a trip to Kenya or anywhere? Is it, this seems like an interesting experience? Is there a particular activity you're looking to do that for the first time, or what informs that for you?
It sounds trite, but as you get older, I value things less and experiences more. I've always been the kind of person who gets bored sitting in one place. Like wherever I am at, that's my home. Like I don't have like a strong nesting instinct, which is good and bad. And I just hadn't been to Africa, and I've been corresponding with some trekking guide for years. Like, come on, go. Actually, you brought this up, so let me riff on this. One thing I've learned about money from traveling, and by the way, I spent 10 years doing business with China, and China has a very different relationship with money than we do in the U.S. They're more pragmatic in certain ways. I would say it's a bigger part of their life generally, and this is a culture that's had the rug ripped out from under them multiple times. So the savings rate is higher. Like they need to protect themselves. So it's understandably proportionately more important. But whether it's in China or in Kenya or whatever, there's this common thing. If you're from a wealthy country like the U.S., you got to watch yourself a little bit, because in the more developing countries, sometimes people will try to take advantage of you. And I realized like how important this principle of not being cheated is, that sometimes I would say I go too far. Like I remember fighting over a nickel in Sichuan with a taxi driver and a translator who was, she was not from a wealthy area. It was her first time on an airplane traveling with me. And she's like, fine, James, I'll pay the nickel. Like, stop arguing with this guy. And then there was actually another time, and this is going to make me look so stupid, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. I was in Xinjiang in a place called Urumqi. This is that area where the forced labor is in northwest China, where it's a predominantly Muslim region. I was with the taxi. I was in the taxi going to the hotel, and I'm realizing that he's trying to take this really long way to get me to pay a little bit more money. And I didn't like this. And I had nothing I could do. I didn't speak much of the language. And I realized my only leverage was to go absolutely crazy, because this guy would be like on the hook if anything bad happened to me. And so we're driving on the highway, like 60 or 70 miles an hour. It's like December, and it's like 0 degrees Fahrenheit in this place. It's a very cold area. So I push the back door open, and I start climbing out, like onto the roof of the, because I'm already, I don't want him to take this long way. So I start climbing out of the car.
This is your solution?
Yeah, this is my solution. And so I'm like halfway on the roof, like getting onto the roof of the car, and the guy is like freaking out. And so he's like, all right. So I pulled over gradually. And so I'm thinking, I won. You know, he's not cheating me. He agreed to go directly to the hotel. But I thought, you know, I'm literally like $2 richer because of this. Like, this was completely not worth it, James. This was like, you risked your life for such a dumb thing. Like, principles matter, but not that much.
What is one thing about money that you wish you knew earlier in life?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I wish I knew how bad I was with it earlier. The compounding, how much a little money saved now makes. Like, if you put $500 into a baby's account when they're born, invested at the S&P 500 average rate for the past century, let's say, that baby will have almost $500,000 when they're 70. Now, the next 70 years may not look like the past 70 years. Who knows? But compounding is just so powerful. And I know that now. I did not know that then. But I think the self-awareness that I did not know that then was even more, or is even a better gift.
You kind of touched on this, the charitable cause you like to support. It sounds like it is this scholarship initiative in the Philippines. That's
one of them. And by the way, if anybody, I might start a U.S. nonprofit, a small thing, just to see if anybody else wants to do that. So if somebody wants to drop an email to info@Curia Financial, Curia Financial, if you're interested in participating, whether it's an individual, it's a company, there are certainly many needy kids, and it's relatively affordable to put them through college. That is one thing that I do. Another one, and this is really, I think, the first time I've told more than 2 or 3 people about this. I don't think my dad, for example, doesn't even know. I also like to sponsor these Christmas food and gift baskets for communities of children there, and I've been doing that for a while. And and I know these people personally who do this, so I can confirm it's a good organization. So that also makes me feel good.
Nice. I typically ask if you have a favorite movie or TV series that has money as a through line, but knowing you as I do, you're not a big movie and TV guy. Is there a? I don't even know. Like, are you someone who reads novels? Is there a fictional character somewhere, or is this just like, no, I don't have anything here?
Yeah, probably the latter. I only got a TV recently so my son could watch movies. I'm really oblivious to most pop culture, and that's a weakness more than a strength, I would say. I should be more plugged into the world. I would say Lao Tzu, who some people might not even say is a real person, but like my ideal money character is someone who's kind of ambivalent to it. Like, I see that as the ultimate goal. Like, my son a couple of years ago said for Christmas, all he wanted was a $9 belt, and I forgot something else. Like, he's like, I just don't need anything more. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm going to live I could live 1,000 lifetimes and still not reach that level of like Buddhist self-awareness and restraint that he's got. So I feel proud for him. And to me, like, that's the ultimate thing, like, where you're not governed by money.
The last thing is a penny for your thoughts. And it doesn't have to be about money. It's just any bit of wisdom from your life that you've picked up along the way that you want to share with people who are listening.
When in doubt, underreact. I think in most cases, that advice will help you. It is possible to underreact too much and not be good. You got to get out of a burning building sometimes. But far and away, I think overreaction has hurt people more than underreaction, particularly in social situations.
When did you come to this way of thinking?
I think it was a buffer, self-protection, probably from some lack of ability in managerial settings. If I'm managing people and I wasn't sure how to deal with a situation, I would say, you know what? Like, whatever my first reaction is going to be is probably not going to be the best reaction. So the best medicine I can give myself is to pause on this and think. And it works the same with investing. Investing is an interesting area because it teaches you about the imperfections in life. No stock is perfect. And even if it's a perfect stock, even if it's the best stock, it's going to be too expensive. So it's imperfect in that way. No person is perfect. No company is perfect. No country is perfect. With investing, you're always weighing a set of positives and negatives. And you can't react emotionally and succeed as an investor. You look at people like Warren Buffett. The best investors are cool, calm, level-headed. So if you're not automatically like that, and I'm probably not automatically like that. I'm more of an art. I used to want to be an artist when I was a little kid. Like, I'm more of a fast reactor by my very nature, but I have learned to compensate for that by taking a chill pill when I'm about to make a big decision and say, wait a minute, let me pause on this. Let me make sure before I send an email to somebody, or before I buy a stock, or before I make a business decision, let me force this layer of self-reflection. And I think that's been one of the better pieces of guidance or self-guidance I've had in my life.
There you go. If you would like to find more investing insights from James Early, go to curiafinancial.com. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.